Yeah, interviewed Dana on Monday. I asked him, I was like, could you do a 14th where you throw that on pay-per-view in partnership with Paramount Plus? Basically, his answer was yeah.
I think I'm fully hopping on the Dricus bandwagon. It's my most anticipated fight of the year.
Khamzat, it almost doesn't matter if he's gotten better or not because he's so good at making other opponents panic.
If he hasn't grown, which I don't know that he has, I just don't think it's going to go the way we kind of might have thought it would have gone a few years ago.
Welcome back to Against the Cage, your MMA home for all the best fight recaps, previews, and exclusive interviews. So if you don't want to miss any of that stuff, make sure you give us a like and subscribe. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with Scott Fontana and Erich Richter, my esteemed co-hosts. And guys, big news this week. Goes without saying, Paramount takes the rights deal for the UFC, $7.7 billion for 7 years. And the big news, seemingly, what we thought at first is that pay-per-view would be dead, but Erich, you did a exclusive interview with Dana White that came out on Monday night, and he said that we could walk back those comments and concerns a little bit. Pay-per-view's not dead. Okay. Scott, you also did a opinion piece on this landmark deal. Could you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts seeing those comments from Dana White?
So, number one, I guess it's not totally surprising that they have not decided to give up the ghost that is pay-per-view. We know how much they love pay-per-view. They've held on to it this long, right? But if it is a case where we're really just talking about one-offs for, let's say, an extremely premium product, something far superior to that of the typical numbered event, I think it's going to be easy enough to justify to us out there. But realistically, just the fact that they have moved to this subscription model is getting with the times. Everything is subscription. I have a Sip Club subscription to Panera so that I can get drinks for free. Am I included in my subscription? There you go. See, he gets it. Eric gets it. I got AMC A-list, so I go to the movies 4 times a week. I don't have to pay for these. Nobody really wants to pay one-off anymore if they have an option to do it another way. And it's going to be really hard for them to ever go back. So I think this is kind of like we're turning to, if it's not dead, it's certainly in, let's say, the old folks' home, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with that in terms of, like, it's going to be hard to go back. Like, I'm not sure what Dana White might be thinking as far as, like, things where pay-per-view might come up, and it didn't seem like he was going to say, like, yeah, every one of these is going to be pay-per-views. Like, no, that seems far from what he was thinking. But in a situation
Eric can
where,
speak to that more.
Yeah, and we'll go right back to you, Eric, but I do agree with that. If we're all high in hopes that, like, this is the last we'll ever have to pay for a pay-per-view, and they're saying, actually, wait, here's one more, I feel like fans are going to be pretty upset. But Eric, give it to us.
Scott, we need a Panera sponsorship for this podcast, like, starting like today. Anyway, interviewed Dana on Monday. Got like 10-15 minutes to talk to him about the deal. And, I thought there was a lot of public reaction about how, like pay-per-view, like originally the story was pay-per-view is dead, and then it goes from pay-per-view is dead to Dana had mentioned, I asked him the question, the contract is stated 13 numbered events and 30 fight night level events. Now, that's pretty open-ended. Like, does that, the UFC, they have 13 pay-per-views usually. They, like, who's to say, they have had months with 2 pay-per-view events. Like, who's to say that you couldn't have a 14th? And, I asked him, I was like, could you do a 14th where you throw that on pay-per-view in partnership with Paramount Plus? Basically, his answer was yeah. Like, we could totally, we'd absolutely do it. And, like, once we get in there and we start working with them directly, we will be in a position where we can, get that together. Basically, what we're talking about here is and it got so much negative reaction that I actually looked at it as a positive. I disagreed with, look, the MMA community is all over the place in a lot of different ways. But for me, I looked at it like a positive, where it was like, everyone was worried that the UFC wasn't going to have that incentive to really go out there and, like, if a Conor McGregor falls out last July, there's in a vacuum, this Paramount deal, you wouldn't have the incentive to go give Alex Pereira whatever he wanted last July to make that happen, or two Julys ago to make that happen. I think that was a lot of fans' concerns, which I think is warranted. And I was kind of actually happy to hear that Dana said, in the event that there is this big time show that we want to throw together, I guess Dana would say a badass show. he leaves the room for that to happen. So I think that I looked at it more positively, where I thought everybody else looked at it in more of a negative tone. I looked at it, I was like, the UFC still wants to do these really ultra creative, weird type of shows like the Sphere, like the White House, which sounded like it wasn't going to be on pay-per-view as a part of this deal with CBS. But that's the way I looked at it. Where if they want to put on this crazy show where they have, a superstar after superstar, the way that I look at it currently is that they don't have the stars right now to charge for this every single month. And I guess they do currently, but in the future, maybe 7 years from now, they don't look at it that way. That's the way I took it.
I think one of the things you kind of hit on, Eric, is the fact that there's some let's say nerves from certain segments of the MMA community, right? That there will be absolutely no incentive to put out like a quality product. I understand them and I understand where they're coming from, but I really don't know that it's going to get into some sort of dire place because
No.
look at it this way. The UFC just got $1 billion a year, 1.1 a year annual average, right? My understanding is it's more weighted in the back end.
Yes.
But annually speaking, we're talking about a 1.1 billion per year deal here. They can get much less in terms of the growth on the next deal if they don't keep the product fresh and exciting and interesting. 7 years is a long time, but I do think that there is still going to be their need to put out a product and keep it fresh and that kind of thing. And also, they're going to be able to reach so many more people than they ever did because they're not going to gate it behind ESPN Plus and then behind pay-per-view. So the number of people who can get it, I imagine it can only be much bigger on Paramount Plus and is just titanically bigger on CBS. If they're putting like title fights, regular like good old quality high-end title fights on CBS, it's only going to help.
My understanding is that there won't be a lot of shows on CBS. When I asked Dana, I was like, what shows will be on CBS, what shows will be on Paramount? And basically, the response was, we're going to figure that out. Like, we don't know yet. I don't think that personally, just reading like the tea leaves and like the specifics of the deal, I'd be really surprised if there was a lot of events on CBS. Less events, like I could say, maybe not with certainty, but a really good educated guess that there won't be like the UFC on ABC probably happened like a few times a year. I would be pretty surprised if that happens as much on CBS, primarily because ESPN was making money on pay-per-views and CBS has to get people to subscribe to Paramount Plus. There's still going to be pirates. I think that they have to get subscriptions, so they kind of can't unless it's like a one or two off where they're just trying to like lead you in for the next one.
But when they do those, Eric, you got to imagine that they're going to be trying to put a good foot forward. You don't just put hey, let's put a non-title fight on CBS. Like, you really do need to put a strong carrot out there to say, this is what you can tend to expect if you come over here. Right. It may not be the biggest one, but, I mean, realistically, could they put a quality title fight on there, especially one that would be entertaining and has a semi-recognizable name? I think they could do that and get away with it and maybe find that sweet spot where maybe Fox was doing pretty well with that in their deal long ago. But maybe near the end, they started winding down and doing less of that.
Fair enough. So I think this is a good transition, this conversation about CBS, to kind of go into some of the questions that are still left unanswered by this. And talking about CBS and big fights going on CBS, we've heard Dana White talk about this big mythical White House card potentially going on there. I'll throw it to you, Scott. For this White House card on CBS, what do you think that this would do for the UFC, and do you plan on seeing that on CBS and them following through with this?
If they're saying that they want to put it on CBS, I imagine that's what they're going to do. Although, who knows? We've heard mixed messages this week in so many ways, so there could be way too many moving parts for us to really attach any value to definitive words, right? Yeah, it would stun me if it's that. But, it sounds like probably more of their issues are kind of what Dana's been talking about this week ever since the announcement, is there's a lot of logistical issues with doing an outdoor show at our nation's capital on the grounds where the president lives and works. It's a very strange thing, and it's kind of an unprecedented thing. They have to figure that out. I'm less worried about the TV aspect of it because if they want it on CBS, if they're saying they want it on CBS, it's going to go on CBS.
How about you, Eric?
I think that the fight's gonna happen. Like if I were to put a percentage on it, Scott, I don't know where you. I think we did like I was in the 60% range like a few weeks ago. I'm gonna upgrade that to like 90%. And the only reason I say that is
I'm
because
closer to that
it seemed
too.
very it seemed very clear that the UFC was using this as a bargaining chip to get more money in the deal. It just seems like that's kind of like was a big negotiating tactic for them. I mean, that seems pretty obvious, like a great spot to put that on CBS and then like just like a nationwide spectacle, a massive show where you can get tons of eyeballs. I think what we were talking about this in pre-production, but like, what would that rating be? Like, would that rating be NBA level? Or, I mean, NFL like kind of is untouchable in terms of ratings, but like, what would that UFC level rating be? Would that be higher than an NBA game, higher than an NBA Finals game? Like, that could be so high, especially if you're talking of a card that has John Jones and Conor McGregor on it. Who knows?
Potentially.
But especially if you got like those level of stars on it, oh my goodness! Like I'd be interested to see could that reach a level where you're probably not competing with NFL ratings, but you might be able to compete with the NBA with that kind of card.
But here's an issue with that. As far, I mean, I don't want to go crazy with the ratings, but the one thing that kind of sticks out as a potential hiccup to reaching those high heights that we're talking about, people have plans on the 4th of July. People go places.
That
And
is
a
true.
lot of people could end up in one place watching one television. So there are fewer people watching than typical. So I could see that almost backfiring in that sense. So but I don't want to go crazy about the ratings. Who the heck knows?
That is a very interesting point. One thing that I do want to bring up just briefly, because this is such a massive deal and like a big change, honestly, for the UFC. I mean, they've been operating with pay-per-view for like 30 years. Paramount pays an insane amount of money over the 7-year deal. Who's got the bigger risk in this deal, in this endeavor, Eric? How do you see that?
So there's risk on both sides here. I would say that like the UFC is risking a relationship with ESPN, which I'm sure, I mean, if you asked ESPN right now, I'm sure that they wouldn't have very many good things to say about the UFC. But you know, and they put a statement out through me. If you go check my Twitter, they put a statement out through me about how, you know, pretty much they just said they're excited to work with the WWE now and see you later, UFC. You know, basically like the risk, and we've seen this in the past with the NHL, which is a key detail. When the NHL left ESPN, I believe it was about 10 to 15 years ago, NHL kind of wasn't talked about on ESPN streaming anymore. On SportsCenter, First Take, the whole thing, and then you know they come back, and now it's back on NHL on ESPN signage. Very important. UFC on ESPN signage was on Monday Night Football constantly. There was advertisements constantly. That goes away for sure, obviously. But like, how
But
much
it
we gotta
also
talk about it
brings back
First
on
Take?
CBS. CBS airs a lot of football games, dude.
They do, but so when you look at it from like a perspective of like just sports content, like ESPN has wall-to-wall 24/7 sports content, whereas CBS is doing a lot of news stuff, which is fine. You also get the rub from that. Another piece of risk that I think the UFC is taking like is based on just solely on social media. And I don't want to get in here and say that the UFC is just a social media sport because I know people have said that. I think like Power Slap is just a social media event or whatever you want to call it. But like the social media aspect of this is huge. If you look at the social media following of like CBS versus ESPN, dude, it's like 300 million followers to like 30 million followers. Like if you combine the entities as a whole, the ESPN accounts and YouTube versus CBS. I believe Errol Hawani did a good thing on that. And like even when I wrote about how the UFC library was taken UFC library was taken off of ESPN Plus at one point. ESPN was touting their ESPN MMA account. That is a big account. Like that was one of their the ESPN told me that their ESPN MMA account was one of the biggest ever.
Alrighty, so thank you for breaking that down, Eric. And before we close this out, what are some of the other things that that you wanted to highlight that maybe didn't get as much attention?
A couple other things that Dana said to me was event time changes, possible. Probably not likely. CBS doesn't get nighttime college football games. So Saturday night should be in theory free. There's a docu series that runs every Saturday at 10 o'clock It's a true crime documentary series. The name continues to escape me. I keep forgetting. But 10 p.m. on Saturdays, they do run this documentary. I feel like that can probably be moved.
Just move the fights to 9. I just want 9. It doesn't have to be 10.
Here, here.
I know.
1 hour is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. The events time change. That's a big one.
Yeah, so that's possible, but I would say probably not likely. And then just being not on the same page as CBS at this point, like it seems like they literally just started talking within the last week. You can get your conspiracy theory tinfoil hats if you'd like, but you know, basically they're not on the same page in terms of what will be on CBS versus Paramount. Dana had a good comment on it for me, and it was basically like, we have to figure it out, see if they do or not.
Fair enough. Yeah. And that fighter pay thing too. That's another one that we're going to continue to look at. Scott, I'll throw this to you just to close this one out. I mean, he said that, he'll look at upping the bonuses, but really kind of mum on the other details. What's your take on that specifically?
Listen, we've heard Dana say the same thing before, that money does continue to go up over time. And yes, it absolutely does. Does it keep up with, things like inflation, or does it keep up with the fact that the UFC has made significant exponential levels of growth, whereas the fighter pay has gone gradually up, and the share of the money that goes to the fighters we've seen reported as much lower and lower as we continue to go. Even the bonuses, I mean, they didn't go up with ESPN. They used to be higher like 15 years
60
ago.
Gs.
It's ridiculous. Oh, I mean, they used to go even higher than 60. You get a lot more. I mean, it depended on the event, but they kind of said, okay, let's just do something stable. So they settled at 50, and they didn't change it at all. And that's just been silly to me. So like, how much is it going to go up? If it goes up to 100, hey, that's cool. Probably still should have done that years ago. And that's just bonuses. We're not even talking about the fact that there's a lot of money that really can go to the fighters. But let's face it, the fighters do not fight hard enough as a collective to make sure that happens. So if they don't do that and they don't get it, it's almost hard to be that mad about it, because they're the ones who benefit the most. They're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I feel like we could do a whole episode on that, but obviously with the recent news, it's definitely worth bringing it up. But let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think is the most interesting part of the UFC's future at CBS and Paramount Plus? Do you like it?
Crazy. Can't believe we're saying that out loud.
I know, right? It is such a dark horse. No one saw that one coming. But you know what we do see coming this weekend? We got Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus Du Plessis getting into that octagon. Dricus defending his title at middleweight against Boers. And Scott, you spoke to Dricus last week. It went up on Friday, this interview. You asked Dricus what his strategy would be, if there would be any consideration on taking Khamzat's gas tank into account for his game plan, and here's what he had to say on that.
Yeah, no, that's not me. That's never going to happen. You can't go and say, oh, this guy always gets tired. Maybe he gets tired. And what if he doesn't? You don't bargain on somebody else's weakness when you go and fight. You don't know what that guy's going through. When the ref says fight, I'm fighting as hard as I can for as long as I can.
So guys, obviously I spoke to Dricus here, but I'm curious, what do you think of kind of the idea that, hey, maybe we don't need to drag it into deep water. We'll just take what we can, and we'll always be looking for that finish. What do you think? Let's start with Erich.
Yeah, I think he's playing. I think he's playing the game. I think that the whole strategy should be survive round one, and then I'll see you survive round one. I'll see you at the back half of round two if you're still there.
I don't know, man. I think I'm fully hopping on the Dricus bandwagon. I don't know. I feel like he's won me over as a fan.
Is that an official pick?
No. I'm not saying in terms of chances.
This is where Jake's heart is, I believe.
This is where my heart is, and I'm a little bit biased because my mom is from Southern Africa, so like Dricus, there's a connection there. But dude, the way that he like speaks in these interviews with like such confidence, like Khamzat is such a scary dude, and I believe Dricus is what I'm trying to say. I don't know, and maybe this is just me being naive because he has won my heart over as a fan, but I do believe him in that, and he fights like you stole money from him, you owe him some money. That's kind of where my head's at on that one. But Scott, what did you think?
I'll give you my 2 cents too, and the fact that I do think that he is telling the truth, that he really is trying to win the fight at any minute, at any time. He's allowing for that possibility, but also I have to think him and his team are smart enough to understand that what we've seen of Chimaev is that he is a bull in a china shop for those opening minutes. He doesn't necessarily gas out, but he's a different fighter if you survive the opening salvo. And I have to think that they're aware of that, to the point that they wouldn't necessarily give away rounds, but also maybe along the way, you just don't take the biggest risk possible until you start to open up later. And that's okay. Fighters feel each other out forever, and you do that for 4 or 5 minutes, then you see what Chimaev's giving you, and then you take advantage. You never know. I could see that.
Yeah. What do you guys think as far as that Khamzat that we see in the first round and 2 rounds? Do you think that Dricus will be able to fend off him? Because you've seen clips of him and his coaches saying like, we're gonna take the fight to him. Do you guys see that happening? Eric, what do you think?
Oh, so I'll just give you my breakdown of the fight. I can tell you what I would do if I was his coach, and this would be my game plan, would be pull guard. If you watch the Gilbert Burns fight, he's going to shoot within the first 30 seconds. You know that. If you watch the Gilbert Burns fight, Gilbert Burns pulled guard a couple times, and Khamzat let him back up. He doesn't actually want to be in your guard. He wants to control the position that he chooses. So
I know what you're saying.
Of he goes for back takes, and he wants 3/4 mount. So if you pull guard, I think that you can actually kind of control the action a little bit. And I would not want to be in a situation where he's taking your back and lifting you up and talking to Dana. Like, that's not where you want to be. So if he could control the grappling, because I actually think Dricus can win grappling exchanges if this gets to round 3, 4, 5. I actually think Dricus will be an offensive grappler in this fight if it gets to the later rounds.
Okay, Scott, I know you've got thoughts.
I don't know that the pulling guard thing really works quite as well if you're Dricus Du Plessis compared to Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a fantastic jiu-jitsu player, and there's nothing against Dricus Du Plessis as far as a grappler goes, but I just don't think the same level of danger is present to Khamzat Chimaev as there is when it's Dricus Du Plessis versus Gilbert Burns. And I think probably there was a lot of awareness in the Chimaev camp here, and in him in particular, that, hey, I don't need to engage with him here. There's other ways I can do that. And I don't know that he'll feel that way here.
Yeah, I'd say Burns might have a better guard, but in terms of Dricus's jiu-jitsu game, it is top, like world class.
I'm not saying that, but there's you practice BJJ. We all do. We all have or do, right? There's different positions where you're going to be better at, right?
I see what you were saying, Scott, as far as like looking at Gilbert Burns from a strategy perspective. Like getting out of his guard could have been something that was a part of the game plan, versus in this one it might be a little bit different,
Could be.
But going off of that, talking about Khamzat's game, obviously he is a grappler first, but over the course of his UFC career, I believe he debuted in 2019, if that's correct, or
2020.
2020.
They both came into the UFC 3 months apart.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that
during the pandemic? Yeah.
Do you think that his game has evolved enough over the course of his UFC career? Now that it's been 5 years, Scott, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think?
I don't think it distinctly has. I'm sure his his striking in particular has probably grown from what it was over the course of 5 years. But realistically, this is still kind of the same monster that we have seen since that torrid stretch of he won 3 fights in the UFC in the 2 months between when he and Dricus Du Plessis made their debuts. And then he only fought 5 times since then.
Yeah.
So everything significantly slowed. He obviously had many issues, health-wise,
with COVID,
probably visa-wise as well. There were several things that have come up over the years, right, that have inhibited his ability to compete as often as Dricus Du Plessis has, which is why he was able to rise to the top much faster. Having said that, I really think the fact that we have a lot more tape on this guy now, he's just got a lot more exploitable holes that Dricus Du Plessis and his team are going to have seen than those early days. And, as much as, we have a really strong fighter that he's beaten in Robert Whittaker, this is somebody who's in his prime. Dricus Du Plessis is at his best right now. This is the best fighter that we have in terms of Dricus Du Plessis versus Dricus Du Plessis of any other time, and possibly even subsequent, right? This might be the best version ever. How's he going to do against that when he didn't even fare all that great against, let's say, a later stage version of Kamaru Usman fighting up a weight class on shorter notice? So I don't know how much this is going to help him, or well, it's not going to help him really at this part. If he hasn't grown, which I don't know that he has, I just don't think it's going to go the way we kind of might have thought it would have gone a few years ago.
You guys are all going to bet the underdog, aren't you?
Dricus?
Yeah.
I'm not betting.
In theory, in a vacuum.
In my
There's
heart.
a lot of pro Dricus. There's a lot of pro Dricus talk on here, and I'm not anti talking Dricus here. My thing is Khamzat, it almost doesn't matter if he's gotten better or not because he's so good at making other opponents panic. That's like the number one thing in MMA. It's the panic. It's when, and you saw it this past weekend with Roman Dolidze. He panicked in the second round against Fluffy. He absolutely panicked. He felt like he was drowning in an ocean. Khamzat does that in a way that's so crazy because it happens inside of 2 minutes. You will have somebody who's in the best shape of their life go in there and panic within 2 minutes. It's really unbelievable. Has he gotten better? Don't really care. He's maybe in terms of like scary grappling, it's like him and Habib and Cain Velasquez are like two like the only like scary, really scary grapplers that come off the top of my head. Khamzat might be number one on that list, just in terms of like total dominance. It's crazy, and the finishing capability on top of that. So for me, has it evolved? Almost doesn't matter. If he wins this fight, if he taps out or TKOs Dricus in the first round of this fight, there's a very, very clear argument for pound number one in the UFC right now. And I know he hasn't fought that much. He's not going to be very active. I think we all understand that he's not going to be an active fighter. But if he knocks Dricus off in the first round here, I mean, I don't even know what you could even say about this guy.
You'd put him over Islam?
I could probably say a lot. But
Scott, I don't know if it's going to take too long. We might have to keep moving on because we have so much to get to.
The only thing I want to say, I just want to add one more thing about Dricus here, is the fact that I think his durability is going to be extremely key in this fight. I think we've seen durable fighters are the ones who do the best against Chimaev because they can weather that storm. And once you get through it, it's a lot different. If he can't get through it, absolutely, we're looking at someone who I'm starting to think can really go places at middleweight. But man, you're jumping the gun with this pound for pound number one stuff, my guy. Oh man, slow it down.
Dude. He's number 3 ranked right now. We're going to get to the rankings in a second here, but he's number 3 ranked now, jumps up to title. Oh my goodness. Like the hype, you also got to remember the hype for this guy was unbelievable like 10 years ago.
Fair enough.
Like 5 years ago.
Well,
no,
yeah.
Like, in like 2016, Brian Stan was talking about this guy. He's like, there's a guy from Sweden.
But we didn't know his name then.
Yeah, he didn't even know his name, but there was talk of him back when he was like really young. The hype has been real.
Well, I will say in this one, there is an extra 2 rounds. Excuse me. There's an extra 2 rounds, so that is going to be definitely a factor in this. So we'll see how that goes. And another thing to note too is, I mean, obviously Khamzat had those first 3 fights with those finishes, but since then, the only person I believe I can recall him finishing is Kevin Holland, right? He went to a decision against Gilbert Burns. He went to a decision with Kamaru Usman. Oh.
He finished
Robert Whittaker. That's the reason why we're all
Robert
here.
Whittaker's
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
He caved in Robert Whittaker.
Memory hold that one. You didn't like what he did to his teeth, did
No, yeah, I blocked that one out of my memory. But to round out this fight, let's just talk about this middleweight division that we've got now. I mean, I feel like it's more stacked than it's been in quite some time. So let's just even going back, say like a couple years. What were your guys' perspectives on the middleweight division then versus now? Scott, briefly, if you could give me your thoughts on that.
Listen, let me tell you this. Just the fact that right now we have a very completely changed over with new blood middleweight division. I think that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, we still have, some personality and some former champions in Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland. But other than them, I mean, you can take even our title fighters out of the equation for this one. Take out DDP, you can take out Chimaev. We're still talking about Nasruddin Imavov. We're talking about Reiner de Ritter. We're talking about Kyle Bahalio, Anthony Hernandez. There's so much excitement and new blood, and they're interesting. Middleweight was very boring, like almost like 2 years ago, maybe even less. And it has very quickly gotten very exciting. And I think you look at some of these guys, especially if it's Dricus that gets through, right? if it's Dricus that gets through, and we're not talking about, this Chimaev monster anymore. We're still talking about a very impressive DDP, but we're also talking about, hey, look at some of these other challenges. There's a lot of stuff he could do to really grow a middleweight legacy. Probably one that could even surpass that of Adesanya. I do think Anderson Silva's legacy is probably so far out of reach, it's going to take a very long time. But I do think we've got potential in a DDP if he can go forward and pass some of these very interesting tests. We're talking about someone who's an all-timer, but maybe just below that absolute middleweight go.
Yeah, and should he get past Chimaev on Saturday, we can have that discussion next week for sure. But Eric, your thoughts on the middleweight division right now?
Really quick, I'll compare the top sixes. In 2020, it was Israel Adesanya was the champ. Whitaker was the #1 contender. Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero, Jared Cannonier, and Darren Till. That was back in 2020. Now we have Dricus Du Plessis as the champ. Nasruddin Imavov is the #1 contender. Strickland, Khamzat, Israel Adesanya, Reiner de Ritter. I think it's pretty clear.
Borralho, right? Yeah.
Borralho, yep. Borralho is number 6.
Yeah.
Number 6 ranked. So that's dude, murder's row, right? Especially with what we just saw after Fluffy Hernandez. Just would argue, and we're not going to get into this, but Sean Strickland's rating at number 2 is pretty high. Especially when, bless you, Khamzat Chimaev is number 3 fighting for the title. Fluffy Hernandez just ran through Dolidze. Like, would Strickland be favored against any of these guys? Maybe besides Adesanya. Is a good conversation for another day.
I think Scott and I don't have too much disagreement with saying that that's a bit of a high ranking for Strickland there. But yeah, I mean, I'm very, very high up on where we are. I mean, I think, you know what, honestly, for me, when I saw Cannonier, the fallout of that fight with Izzy, I mean, it was not a great fight, but I was like, damn, this middleweight division's like really not my thing right now. And then Poatan comes in, and I think that turned the whole thing around. I thought that was like the specific point when like things really started to change and go up from there. But
I do think to kind of compound on that, Jake, I think it had more to do with just that really upper level, though. It wasn't much more beyond that. That was super interesting. Now we've got some depth in our contenders at the very top as well. That's what's cool.
Well, speaking of contenders, we've also got a pretty good co-main event. We've got Aaron Pico coming into the UFC from the PFL, and honestly, I'll just say it, come clean. I'm not super well versed in Aaron Pico, and you know what? A lot of other fans who mainly watch UFC might not be as well. So, Scott, could you kind of give us the backstory on Aaron Pico and what's the hype around this guy?
I'll give you a quick primer here. Basically, he came in to his MMA debut very hyped. He had been pursuing Olympic wrestling team as a teenager. He came over, and when he was going to make his Bellator debut, ESPN, they did this big feature that was like, could he be like the biggest prospect in the sport we've ever seen, right? Goes out there and loses his debut at the Garden in 24 seconds. So terribly booked in that scenario, right? He goes 4-0 after that, then loses back-to-back against some real solid veterans. We're talking about a 4-3 fighter that was supposed to be the greatest prospect of all time. Completely mismanaged his career. We've gotten to the point now in years after that, right, where I think the cadence was much better. He went 9-1 since. He's still young. He's only turning 29 next month, so there's still a lot of excitement for this guy.
Okay, gotcha. So
I would just say, the UFC is all in, right? Like, they are putting this guy on. He's wearing the suit. He was at International Fight Week presser. He's the co-main event in his debut, which you don't see very often.
Yeah.
Aaron Pico could be, if he wins this fight, which I'm a little dubious of, but he could win. He'd be a big time star, maybe.
Yeah, and actually, to go off of that, I remember when they were talking to Dana at press conferences.
Yes.
Who do you want from the PFL? Like, would you want Patricio? He's like, maybe not. And then Pico, he was straight answer. Finally,
Yes.
he was like, yes, I do. So
he's like, we want that guy. He's like, I know that guy. I think they were upset that they lost him to Bellator. I think that they felt like they shouldn't have lost him to Bellator.
Maybe.
Which has been happening more.
But you know what? Now that he has come in and they seem pretty excited, do you think that he's ready for top-level UFC competition, Scott? What's your thoughts on this matchup?
Ideally, I think he should have started maybe a little bit of a rung lower on the ladder, because Lerone Murphy is legit. He has been doing a lot of real work here. He has earned his place in a way that Aaron Pico really has not yet. I mean, we've seen him kind of get to the fringe of the top 25 worldwide at featherweight. This is not somebody who's won a belt or anything like that. He is not all that accomplished. He has still been viewed as essentially a prospect, even though he's 8 years in and he's almost, he's not 30 yet. He won't be 30 this year, but he's getting closer to that, right? But I do think there is some concern here that maybe for his career, he should have taken that better step. Maybe it's just PTSD from the way he was just terribly handled his first 2 years as a pro compared to the subsequent 6. But let the guy see where he's at. I'm okay with that. But as long as we kind of understand, he is still fighting a little bit above where he's kind of earned in terms of in the cage. Not that he can't win, but maybe starting just a little lower would have been ideal. But that's not how the UFC does it. They like to throw these fighters into the fray when they bring them in.
What are we doing? Like, I hate the matchmaking. Like, and I didn't like the matchmaking for Patchy Mix either. Like, why are we doing this?
I was okay with Patchy. I think Patchy needed to be tested. He was a champion. People were talking about him in that upper level. I certainly thought he would perform significantly better than he did. Pico, I'm a little less sure of.
Fair enough. Yeah, but I mean, to Eric's point, we have been seeing kind of a bad streak with some of the PFL / Bellator people being brought in. But we'll see if he can break that trend. Obviously Patricio Pitbull came back with a win recently, but yeah, that's it for our main and co-main event. And because this is a pay-per-view card and a championship fight, guys, we got our sports entertainment rating that we have to get to, and I'm gonna go first, and I am just gonna say
for just the title fight, just to make sure everyone knows.
Yes, just the title fight, co-main event, not a title fight, so won't be doing it for that one. This is for Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis. Out of a 5-star rating for sporting, I'm giving this one a 5, and for entertainment, I'm giving this one a 5. I feel like I don't have to say too much else on that one. It's my most anticipated fight of the year, and I am going to be glued to the screen. So, yeah, that's me. Eric, what about you?
That's my boy. I'm going to go 5 and 5 as well. I'm so excited for this fight. I think that is going to be uber competitive. The excitement is, yes. Jake, you got me fired up. You got me fired up.
Thank
honestly.
you.
5 and 5.
Scott?
I think this is probably more like a 1 and a 2. No, it's a 5 and a 5, guys. Like I almost went for sporting, and the reason is because we don't necessarily look at Chimaev as the absolute unquestioned number 1, but I don't think that's his fault. It's just the fact that there is an actual real interest in some of these other competitors as well. If it was Imavov, I think I could also give it a 5. But here, Chimaev is such that monster, right? There's so much hype, and he has delivered it each time he's needed to. Ultimately, I think you can say, it's 1A and 1B between him and them. So, yeah, I'm going with a 5 as well. So we've all got 10s, guys. This is a perfect 10. We've never had a perfect 10. We've not even.
This is the biggest fight card of the week.
Yeah,
it's easily the biggest fight that we have assigned this rating to since we came up with our amazing, perfect, flawless system.
Patented.
Earlier this year. Yes.
Patent pending. Rather.
Yeah, patent pending. That's true.
Yeah.
It's working its way through the patent office.
And honestly, I don't think anyone can really argue with it. Like it's a 5 and a 5.
It's the best. It's the best main event that we've had in forever.
But if you do want to argue with us about that one, please let us know in the comments. What do you think? What do you think about this fight? What do you think about the card? And on everything else, the big news of the week, Paramount did all that such. But guys, we got some other fights that are also on this one. What are your fights to watch? Scott, what's your fight to watch?
I went with another middleweight fight, really not one that factors into the title mix or anything like that, but Gerald Meerschaert against Mikhail Shaychek. I like this fight because they're both finishers, and in particular, we have a Meerschaert who, anytime he gets to that 3rd round, you're like, all right, when's he going to submit this guy? So I think it's going to be a lot of fun for as long as it lasts. We've seen a lot of finishing from Shaychek as well. I think we'll have some fun.
Eric, how about you?
All right, I'm going to butcher the name, but late add to the card. If you watch Dana White Contender Series on Tuesdays, a newcomer is Khamzat Chimaev, is one of his main training partners. Beisandr Susurkayev. I'm sorry if I butchered it, but we're going to learn it on Saturday because he's fighting Eric Nolan, who I'm also very excited for as well. He's the, what is he, the CX, I have it written down, CFCC champion, and he's now on short notice jumping into this card. Just another awesome wrinkle. And I know I haven't seen the bout schedule yet, I would venture to guess that this is a curtain jerker. This is a really fun curtain jerker. I feel like this is a fight that we can look at like 5 years from now and say like, oh my God, Arman Tarzoukian and Islam Makhachev fought on a prelim card one time. I feel like that's what you're going to see on this one.
Wow.
I think this fight, I don't know if it was finalized, but I did see an update at some point somewhere when I was kind of getting ready for the show here. I think this fight actually did get moved into
No,
the TV
MMA Junkie reported
prelims.
it.
Yeah, I thought it got
Bad.
moved into the prelims because we had lost the Bobby King Green, really just King Green now, against Diego Ferreira fight. That fell out, and that opened a spot on the TV. So this might have been moved up there. We'll see.
Oh, so the fight's still happening on 319.
Yeah, no, that one's happening. It's just not. No,
Okay.
you're thinking of another fight got moved. That's a different one.
Okay.
Alrighty, so that fight is still eligible to be picked for this, but as far as the curtain
Fun one.
jerker,
Get ready.
I'll put something up on the screen once I check afterwards.
We'll
But
figure it out.
yeah. Anyways, Scott, it is about that time. What is our event rating for this one? We had a crazy high Apex rating on this one. Are we gonna get a crazy high rating on this one?
We got an 84. It's a strong
Solid.
one, right? I don't think it's not amazing, but it's really good. And I think the only
Pay-per-view
reason
worthy.
it's really being pay-per-view worthy, it's 100% a solid pay-per-view. We've had better ones, but we've certainly had worse. I think this is good. A stronger co-main from a ranking standpoint would have helped. Aaron Pico really does drag it down because, again, he has not achieved that high a place in this sport. We're throwing him in a little fire a little bit here. But outside of that, and the fact that there is one prospect fight on here, now we lost two, so we were two, down to one, the one that Eric's most excited for, really. We have just all 100 top 100 talent. You probably know all these men and women. It definitely helps a lot when you know all of them and you understand, hey, they belong here and they're really in the mix at various levels.
Alrighty. Well, Eric, let's talk about some of them. It is about that time for your 3 bets in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, let's talk about UFC 319. From a betting perspective, I just want to shout this out from the get. Dricus Du Plessis, I would like to bet Dricus Du Plessis, but I would not like to bet him prior to the fight starting. I think that he's a very good bet to lose the first round. He's a very good bet to get finished in the first round if it gets to that point. So I think that there's really no value in betting either side until the fight starts. You know that Khamzat's shooting within 30 seconds. You know that we're going to find out if Du Plessis can even hang for that long. But so, from a betting perspective, I think that Dricus is going to be probably plus 300 by the time that the first round ends. And, from there, you could have your fun and maybe project out Du Plessis to win on cardio or better striking or grappling, honestly. I think Du Plessis is a good bet, but wait for it after the end of round 1. You get so much more information. You'll get better odds. There's no reason to bet him pre-fight. But, going into UFC 319, let's talk about UFC 319 from a betting perspective, picks that I actually am targeting. And we're going to jump in, put 3 minutes on the clock, and go to Alexander the Great Hernandez against Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper rapidly improving. His striking's getting better. His wrestling's getting better. But I actually think Hernandez is a tough matchup for him. I think Hernandez has a little bit better athleticism. Striking edge is definitely there. And while he's not the best grappler by any means, I think that he could totally hang. Like, I don't think he's an auto submit by any stretch of the imagination. Chase Hooper, solid, but what does he really do well? What does he do really well? It's you say grappling, but I don't know. Jim Miller did okay against him, and I don't know. I think that Hernandez is better striking, better body work. More importantly, I think that Hooper, if he gets hit in the body, especially with a low, a body shot or a hook to the ribs, I think that he could crumble here. I'm gonna take Hernandez on the money line. I think this line's crazy. Plus 260, give me that all day. Hernandez, and then we're gonna go over and talk about Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page, obviously super frustrating to fight. I think Cannonier is someone who's live to get frustrated. I think we've seen that in the past as well, with Cannonier maybe getting a little bit frustrated, especially against Israel Adesanya and stuff like that. Venom Page, look, if Cannonier is going to come in here and start, the grappling heavy approach, I think that could work. I also am not 100% sure that he'll be able to get him down consistently. I think that that's Cannonier's main path to victory is grappling, but I don't like that for him. I think that Michael Venom Page kind of just out footworks him around the octagon, to be honest with you. Big cage, remember, not in the apex. So I think he just works his way around the octagon and just pops him with jabs and hooks throughout the fight, kind of like how he did to Kevin Holland, honestly. So give me Michael Venom Page by decision plus 120. And then we got another one here. This is a little bit odd, because 5 years ago, Edson Barbosa absolutely beats the brakes off of Drakkar Close, right? Like we probably highlight reel knockout, spinning wheel kick, something crazy. Edson Barbosa is just not the same guy anymore, and it's upsetting. It's hard to bet against a legend like this, but for me, I'm taking Drakkar Close here. I think you could just grapple him and lay on him for 3 rounds. Honestly, I think you could be looking at a 29-28, 30-27 decision. Drakkar Close by decision plus 250. We haven't seen anything out of Barbosa in a while. Drakkar Close is not that talented, but Barbosa, if he gets taken down, I feel like we're going to see him kind of get frustrated, maybe gas out trying to get up. I think Barbosa probably has a round in him, and then after that, it could be all Drakkar Close. So those are 3 bets in 3 minutes. Enjoy the fights. This is a stacked fight card for betting, and for me, you're going to have the whole fight card betting picks Saturday on the web and Friday in the newspaper.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. And we're not done talking UFC because we have some fights to recap from Saturday night. The main one, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez submits Roman Dolidze in the 4th round. And Scott, I'll throw it to you. We've been talking about Hernandez with all this middleweight talk. Do you think that he needs to fight one more elite middleweight before he gets a title shot?
I say yes, and it's not that he's not been impressive. He has. He really has. He's passed all these tests, especially with flying colors as he goes on. He's getting even more interesting, right? But it is so crowded for all the reasons we talked about. At 185 pounds, he's not faced anyone among that top 6. He deserves a fight against one of those guys next. And you know what my vote is? Sean Strickland.
Really?
Wow. Eric, what do you think?
That's such a fun fight, especially because they're both so cardio heavy. That's so fun. And Strickland's takedown defense, we'll see if it holds up.
As long as it's not in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's going to have to wait a while. Yeah. Well, no, he's not going to fight anywhere until that suspension is done.
Oh.
Dude,
all the other states are going to honor that.
Okay, fair enough.
Fluffy, just unbelievable in the way that he's able to make his opponents panic just based on his incredible pressure. Even in the 2nd round, he's looking at him, he's laughing, he's like, "You're tired, I know it." And like, oh, one thing that is going to be, I think, could be key even this weekend is that Fluffy would do the takedown, and then Dolidze would try to get guard back and then go for like backside 50-50 or another leg lock. Fluffy would just get up and be like, "All right, I'm going to take you back down again and make you keep getting up and back down." Like, I love that, and I think that could be something that Dricus or Khamzat, somebody could end up doing this weekend.
Alrighty. And as far as any other fights on the card, I do want to give a quick shout out to Steve Ersk, who after facing like 3 or 4 Thanoses in a row, finally gets a win back in the win column in bantamweight.
Didn't look great as a -500 favorite, I will say.
Yeah, that is true. But that's UFC taken care of. We've also got some PFL fights going on this weekend on Friday night, 9 p.m. main card on ESPN. The prelims 6:30 on ESPN Plus. And Scott, I feel like you are our resident PFL expert. How do you feel about this card going up against a UFC pay-per-view on the whole for the weekend?
I don't love it, especially when they took last week off. Like, last week would have been a great time for these fighters to shine, and they said, well, you know what, we'll take that week. I don't know why. I have no idea what their scheduling purposes are, and I understand why they don't want to just specifically only avoid UFC scheduling, but also that was a much better time for them to do that than this week. It is getting lost in the shuffle, I think. Even their big announcement, which I'm going to talk about very shortly in quick hits, look, they didn't know the UFC deal was going to be announced, right? The TV deal, but they did know a pay-per-view was coming. And it just, I don't know. It just seems like it's not the best way to present the product.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Eric, any thoughts on that?
Word.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, what I have failed to mention is that this PFL is the tournament finals. We've got 155, women's 125, and men's 135. I'll throw it back to you, Scott. Out of these finals, which ones do you find the most intriguing?
I think it's definitely the lightweight one with Gaji Rabadanov against Alfie Davis. Rabadanov, for my money, he is probably the most talented fighter in the entirety of their tournament lineups this year. Davis has been very impressive in kind of making a very quick ascent to these finals, winning fights and passing tests and coming from, being a lot more unheralded than he was to, now we're starting to talk about him as like, hey, this is an interesting guy here at 155 pounds outside the UFC. I would not sleep on him. He is a massive, massive underdog, but he deserves to be. Rabadanov is legit. And I like this fight a lot.
That's definitely the best fight on the card. Liz Carmouche was, former UFC and not like too interested in that fight. And Alves is
Don't, don't sleep on Liz Carmouche. She has done so much in this sport. Like, this is going for a third promotional championship. She was Strikeforce champion. She was Bellator champion. She could be PFL champion here. This is very impressive what she's.
Anytime that I see stuff like
this, it pales in comparison. Her versus Jenna Bishop. It's just not the same.
Anytime that I see, and like this is probably long-winded, but like anytime I see like a fighter, especially like Liz Carmouche, like what would she be ranked in the UFC in this division? Just like if she's not right, I don't even know if she'd be top 10 at 125. I'd have to look, but it'd be tough. And also like Alves, I believe he's like 13-4 fighting for the title. It's a little tough to get behind. Gaji Ramadanov, definitely.
Mark Kirlilo Alves against Justin Wetzel, our bantamweight fight. Yeah, that one is kind of, I don't want to say it's substandard. These guys are the last two remaining in their bantamweight field, but also their bantamweight field was not particularly impressive to begin with. So yeah, right. I've had a hard time getting up for that particular one. Bantamweights are always fun, I'll give them that, but yeah, it's we're not talking about the same, top 20, top 10 level men and women with these fighters here.
Well, how about the rest of the card, Scott? What do we have for our event rating?
The event rating, it is a 13. It's not that strong, but I will tell you this. If you take out Biagio Ali Walsh's pro fight at the bottom, because he obviously he is a showcased prospect because of the family name, right? And understandably so, right? And he's a good kid. I enjoyed talking to him for us, last, was it a year or two ago?
2023.
2 years ago. 2023. Yeah, time flies, man.
Yeah.
So no diss, but just it's what he is. He's outside the top 1,000, and so is his opponent. But if you take that fight out, we're talking about a 27. It's actually a pretty solid card overall. Like there's a lot of top 100 talent, even outside of the title fights. This is a good fight. Watch the prelims. I don't usually say that with PFL, but watch the prelims.
All right. That's a nice thing to hear for a change. So yeah, let us know which of those fights you are most excited for. And Scott, I'm going to throw it back to you for quick hits.
Guys, sticking with the PFL here. First up, we have the anticipated rematches finally been announced from PFL. Usman Nurmagomedov is going to defend his PFL lightweight title against Paul Hughes. They're going to be fighting in Dubai on October 3rd. The co-main event for this one is Corey Anderson defending his PFL light heavyweight title against last year's tournament winner Dovlet Yagshimuradov. Next up, we've got another fight announced from a former PFL veteran here. The champion Patchy Mix, who we mentioned earlier, is going to face newcomer, the KSW bantamweight champion, Jakub Wicklasz. I'm sorry, I did my best on that one. We'll see how I did with the Polish pronunciation here, but that one will be at UFC 320 on October 4th. Another fight coming up now that we've got a new opponent for her, Norma Dumont, who was going to face Raquel Pennington. She will be facing Ketlin Vieira at Noche UFC 3 on September 13th, per multiple reports. We also have a couple of UFC Hall of Famers are going to be boxing against each other. It is Vitor Belfort, who is 48 years old, against Vanderlei Silva, age 49, boxing 8 rounds in Sao Paulo on September 27th. Just about 27 years after they fought for the first time in the UFC. Pretty wild. Still at it. We also have another event booked. This one is at Prudential Center, and it's UFC adjacent. We have veterans Mike Perry against Jeremy Stevens in the first BKFC event in New Jersey. That is for Mike Perry's ceremonial King of Violence title. And then lastly, some John Jones news. One of the charges he is facing relating to a hit and run in February has been dismissed. He still faces 2 other charges.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for that, Scott. And it is time for the final round. And yes, I did do my homework. I've only had one slip up so far. But TJ Dillashaw versus Dominick Cruz. And Scott, you prefaced when you gave us this to watch it with scoring in mind. And I'll tell you this off the bat, I was pretty confident with round 1 going to Dominick Cruz, and rounds 4 and 5, I was feeling pretty okay giving those to TJ Dillashaw. 2 and 3 were my fence rounds. Like I really could not give it one way or the other. But
if you had to,
which you do in theory.
I know you do.
Come on.
I honestly couldn't tell you. I was.
Oof.
I know.
I had Dominic. What'd you have, Scott?
I gave rounds 1, 2, and 3 to Cruz, and I gave 4 and 5 to Dillashaw, which I think was a semi-popular media score of the time. It was also the card from, I believe the judge was David Ginsburg. So one of the 3 judges had that exact card. And then there were also opposing 49-46s that the scores were kind of all over the map for. This is a fight where, hey, look, there's a lot going on here, right? So I can kind of understand how that can happen. But, you know, there was a coalescence on kind of 1, 2, 3, Cruz, 4, 5, Dillashaw. There's reason to go the other way, but yeah.
Dominick Cruz's fights look like sparring matches. That makes it very, very difficult to grade, to score. He's a very hard fighter to score.
He is, but man, some of these strikes he was landing are a lot harder than we often see, or had seen from, because he's now retired, a Dominick Cruz fight. You know, a lot of it was kind of touch him up, that kind of thing in previous fights. I thought he was gotten some really good lands in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do, just to round up on scoring on this one, when that last ticker of the second goes, you've already got someone in mind to give the round to, right? Like you can't wait till that ticker goes to pick one.
What a judge will do is the moment it ends, especially now, I can't speak to what it was even 9 years ago when this fight happened in 2016, but right now, if you go to a UFC event and you're sitting in a position where you can see those judges, the moment that horn sounds, they're already starting to write it down, and it's getting collected by someone from the commission is going to come around and collect their score, and make sure that they have it. So no, we need to know the moment it ends. You don't get to judge how did they walk away from the corner and that kind of thing. You need to pick it.
And one last thing off of scoring, because I have you here, and I need to ask.
Absolutely.
Are there any points besides like the first 5-10 seconds when they might be feeling each other out? Are there moments in the middle of a round where you say, I've got it neck and neck? Or as a best practice, do you always have someone slightly ahead of the other person so that, let's just say it kind of stays constant for the rest of the round, that you don't just say, I've got it tied up? Like, do you really refrain from keeping it even ever?
Judges, obviously, I'm not a judge. I passed the course. I actually do know I'm technically allowed to then pursue becoming a judge if I wanted to. I'm not going to. But what we were taught in the class at ABC at the conference a couple years ago was that there's a few different methods of thinking about it, but one way that I think resonates a lot of people is a horse race, right? Mm-hmm. You know, someone lands something, oh, they get a little bit ahead. Oh, they land this combination, they get even further ahead. Oh, they land a big knockdown. That might go pretty far. You might get a big sprint at that point. But things can kind of evolve as you go, and it's not that you have to have someone ahead, but you really ought to know whether someone did enough to pass them or the other. And you know, you heard Andy Foster talking about this on Aryeh Helwani's show very recently. He wants his judges to be able to figure out the minutia of what can put someone ahead, and I'm okay with that.
Fair enough. But rounding out this fight, Eric and Scott, did you agree with the decision? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, Cruz got the win. I scored it 3-2 for Cruz. So yeah, I would think so. And I would say this too. Let's take the scoring out of it and that kind of thing. I did feel like for 3 rounds, Dominick Cruz, that was his fight.
Yeah.
And I thought for those 2 final rounds, Dominick Cruz basically kind of had to hold on. I mean, he wasn't in dire straits, but the leg kick in particular in round 4 from TJ Dillashaw, it like changed the whole composition of the fight from that point on. One of the better leg kicks in a title fight you're ever going to see.
Yeah.
It was really remarkable.
I believe that Cruz was coming off of a leg injury ahead of that fight.
He had a billion injuries, but that was one of them, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was his knees or something with his legs. But yeah,
everything is hurt.
Yes. Yeah. No, but I mean, Scott, it was a great choice for a fight. You know what?
Did you also like, because this was probably your first exposure to prime Dominick Cruz. What did you think of him?
You know what? I have seen clips, you know, with like the Cody Garbrandt fight. I'm not sure.
This is a fight, and that was not his best night.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, but no, I loved it. I think what gave me trouble with trying to score it is there was a lot of low percentage in terms of striking accuracy. So that I think that threw me off for whatever reason. But no, it was
accuracy is not that important with regard to scoring.
No,
it really
it's
just
not.
Matters what does land.
It's not. I know that, but I think because I was seeing so much, I was having trouble processing the stuff that was landing. is a meat
Right.
fight.
And that's hard with these guys. They throw a lot
That's
of
what's
volume
tough.
out there. They're moving really fast. They got a lot of footwork darting in and out. It's a very tricky fight to
Yes,
score. It
but
really is.
that just speaks to how action-packed this fight was going. And, you know, a fight doesn't have to be good. Like, a fight doesn't need, like, tons of things landing to be good. As long as there's stuff happening, I feel like we're pretty happy with it. But let us know in the comments.
Cruz was irking Dillashaw in the lead up to this fight. Like this was kind of the first time that Dillashaw had to deal with, like, as a champion, like some sort of like real like irking trash talk. And Cruz was getting in his head a little bit, I think.
Cruz, underrated trash talker.
The promo ahead of time was really good.
Yeah. But let us know in the comments what you thought of this homework assignment. And that brings us to our next one. Scott, what are you giving us?
I'm giving you guys, because I don't think you've seen this, Jake. Maybe you have, Eric. John Jones against Matt Hamill from the Tough 10 finale back in 2009. Jones was a rising prospect, finally fighting on the main card in an era where prelims were not aired live. So this was like a first real live exposure of John Jones in that way. Matt Hamill, known for his inspiring story as the UFC's first deaf fighter, was on the come up. Strong run ever since getting off of Tough 3 a few years earlier. So I hope you enjoy what you get out of this. We'll be talking about something very particular off of this fight, though.
I was going to ask you. I'm going to leave it for... I don't want to spoil anything. I mean,
most people probably know, but we'll be cryptic.
Yes. I did something on camera that would... I'm going to cut it out afterwards, so it'll just be on you, Scott. But the viewer's going to be hearing this and being like, what do you mean? You didn't do anything. Anyways, next week in MMA, or this week in MMA, I'm all over the place. Scott, give it to us.
The UFC held its first main event, as in the state of Maine. The only trip so far to the Pine Tree State. This was August 16 of 2016, I believe is what it was. I lost that part of my notes, but I think it was 2016. Roughly the same time period as this fight we just talked about for homework, actually. The local Tim Boach picked up a big TKO win in a real Bangor. It was in Bangor, Maine. Ryan Bader was outpointed Ovince St. Preux in a 5-round headliner that really it's not very memorable.
Alrighty, well, hopefully this weekend that we got coming up, this main event is going to be memorable. I'm very excited for it, as you guys know. I don't know if I've made that clear yet. Hope you guys enjoy the fights back home, and we will see you next time.